Welcome back to another episode of Break the Silence. I'm your host, Cyborg. Thanks for tuning in and clicking on the video. We just watched Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals where the Boston Celtics, my Boston Celtics, return to the NBA Finals. I am over the moon ecstatic right now. The first basketball game I ever watched was when the Celtics were in the finals against the Lakers. And we're finally back. I can't believe it. Honestly, they almost blew it. It was a crazy game in which the Celtics led the entire duration of the game. They did lead from start to finish, but the Heat cut it down to 2 with a minute left, and Jimmy Butler had a chance to hit a 3 to probably win that with how much the Celtics offense was struggling. I'm over the moon. I hit a gritty, which I might post in this video.
And Miami continued to fight back. We got about 3.5 to go in the fourth. Kyle Lowry.
I hit a gritty after the game. One of the greatest gritties of all time. You got Justin Jefferson, Mac Jones, and then myself as the top 3 grittiers in the United States today. But let's get into the game a little bit because I can hardly breathe. Jayson Tatum balled out, won the Eastern Conference Finals MVP, the first person to win it in a beautiful fashion because it was named after Larry Bird, and this is the first year it was implemented. So awesome to have a Celtic bring it home. Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart both finished with 24 points apiece. Both were excellent. Marcus Smart hit some massive shots. He also missed some massive shots. In that fourth quarter, Celtics were up 11 with 3 minutes to go. And Smart had 3 wide open threes. I call butt naked threes, and clanked all 3 of them. If he hits any of those, we're not really talking about this being much of a game, but he missed them, and the Heat just kept hitting. Max Strus hit a ridiculous 3. Jimmy Butler, I want to take a second to really shout that human out. Jimmy Butler played 2 of the greatest back-to-back games I've ever watched, and I can't fully grasp what makes Jimmy Butler so good. He just gets buckets. When you watch Kevin Durant or you watch Steph Curry or you watch even Luka, like the way they get buckets, it's like flashy and like looks really impressive. Jimmy Butler just puts the ball in the hole repeatedly, and it's super, super impressive. Jimmy Butler's an awesome basketball player. He finished with 35 points, I believe 9 rebounds. Bam Adebayo also balled, had 25 and 11. So from their stars, they got great production. The problem was they didn't get much production from some of their other guys. And I don't know if that was the Celtics game plan going in to just single cover Butler and say, like, kind of let him get his and we'll shut everyone else down. Didn't really work all that great. The defense was great in the first quarter, but the Heat really fought back. They just kept fighting. It's what they do. The Heat are an excellent basketball team. If they were able to add one more quality player, honestly, if Tyler Hero was fully healthy, they might be in this position. They might be in the NBA Finals. Celtics, though, let's move on to them. They are one of the craziest teams I've ever had to root for. I want you to think back of the journey that the Celtics went on. They started the season in December or early January. I can't remember the exact date. They lost to the Knicks to fall to the 11th seed in the Eastern Conference. And at that point, you're about halfway through the season. Not quite, but pretty close. And the Boston Celtics didn't even look like they were going to be a playoff team. And Jaylen Brown then put out a tweet that said the energy is about to shift. And boy, did it ever. The Boston Celtics then proceeded to play the best defense in the entire NBA for the rest of the season and finished number 1 overall in defensive rating. And we've seen in the playoffs, that's what's carried them to the point they are now, which is the 2022 NBA Finals against the Golden State Warriors. I can't wait for that series. I'm going to give a preview for some of my thoughts of it once I watch a little film on both teams in the coming days. But I'm over the moon. But some of the big changes the Celtics made, I think Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown have for years kind of been in this role where they've been like the entire source of the Celtics offense. So they've kind of had experience in those kind of roles. And a lot of times they failed at that. A lot of times they turned it over. They weren't very good passers. They weren't very willing passers, looking for their own shot too much. And you finally had, it felt like they kind of put it together. And they finally were able to be, Jayson Tatum was finally able to be a primary ball handler and distribute the basketball while also getting his own baskets, which is the development of Jayson Tatum's game. That's aside from the defensive side of the ball. But as far as on the offensive side, he got his teammates involved. And that's what we saw in the fourth quarter. And really even in the third, the Miami Heat were like sending 2-3 guys on Jayson Tatum every time saying, you're not going to beat us. Someone else is going to have to. And Jayson Tatum just kept making the right pass. He just kept doing it. And that's what you love to see. And that's the development of Jayson Tatum, and why I'm so proud of him. And I'm excited to call him my favorite player. I'm excited to have just got his jersey for Christmas. It was the first year I felt like I finally feel like I am fully bought into Jayson Tatum. A lot of times you would see these rankings come out, and Jayson Tatum would be number 2 on the top 25, or the top players under 25 years old. And I feel like he finally validated it. There's so many Jayson Tatum haters out there, though. A lot of people saying that he can't be the best player on a championship team. He's not good enough. He is only a scorer. He's too selfish. He's too inefficient. And all those people can eat crow tonight, because I'm eating steak. Next week, we're eating some Warriors. Woo! But let's move on to Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart. Both played excellent. Jaylen Brown luckily calmed his turnovers down a little bit this game. Marcus Smart played excellent. Overall in this series, it was so back and forth. And if the Celtics make some of these mistakes that they did, if they make those against the Warriors, then they're done for. Because the Warriors are a different animal as far as their offensive abilities, because they have so many weapons on the floor. You have Steph, Jordan Poole, Clay, Wiggins, Kevon Looney's been playing pretty good as of late. So if the Celtics continue to make some of these mistakes offensively with turnovers and things like that, then you're going to get more bitten for it because you're playing a better offensive team. The Celtics in transition defense are by far the worst in the playoffs. The reason being a little bit, the Celtics tend to complain about foul calls a lot. Now, a lot of NBA teams do, but you notice it a lot with the Celtics, to where guys don't get back in transition as much. So the key for the Celtics going into the next series is turnovers. That's really all it comes down to. There's going to be games that you make shots, miss shots, Warriors shoot well, you shoot well. That's the nature of the sport. But if you turn it over 20 times, the Warriors are going to beat you by 20, 30. That's what it comes down to. I'm so excited. The Boston Celtics are finally back in the NBA Finals. This was the squad. I'm so happy for Al Horford. It was his 141st playoff game, which made it the most all-time it took to get to an NBA Finals, but he finally did it. He deserves that. Didn't play very good tonight. Didn't play very good last game, but daggone it, he deserves it. Derek White, huge addition. Made some big shots. He hit 2 threes tonight that honestly both were huge. And everyone contributed. Grant Williams kind of struggled, but he was so huge in the Milwaukee series, so I'm going to give him a pass for tonight. This game, honestly, was an ugly game to watch. The refs made themselves known, to say the least, with some of the most foul calls I've seen in a while. The Celtics actually had their most foul calls in a quarter in the second quarter of that game. And let me tell you, I was dying inside every time that whistle blew. And they were giving free points to Miami because Miami couldn't score in the half court. So the only thing the Celtics couldn't do was turn the ball over and give them transition buckets, or foul them to give them free throws. But the Celtics kept fouling. Some of them were pretty soft calls, in my opinion, for a Game 7. But regardless, I mean, there were a decent amount of them that were definitely fouls. We're moving on. We're going to move on from this series. We're going to celebrate tonight. And by celebrate, I'm not entirely sure what that looks like. I might get a hot fudge sundae from McDonald's, or I might just get 10 hours of sleep. This might be the first night I sleep good in a very long time. But my Boston Celtics are back in the NBA Finals.